From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here, and here's today's lineup. K-State's Brian Briggeman stands by to discuss the state of agricultural cooperatives in Kansas and how they're adapting to the current strains on the agricultural economy. This is, in fact, National Cooperative Month. Also over today from the Kansas Agriculture in the Classroom program, Natalie Anderson. She'll visit with Sarah Moyer about the program's annual meeting coming up soon. She'll also talk about how you agricultural producers can help with the cause of introducing agricultural themes and topics into local school teachings. And on this week's K-State Horticulture segment, Jared Hoyle will offer advice on fertilization and weed control for cool season lawns here in the fall. All that and more next on Agriculture Today.
Hamburgers, roast, ribs, steak, or whatever you prefer. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Kansas cattle farmers produce 7.5 million head of cattle per year. It takes about 7 tablespoons of peanut butter to get the same amount of protein in 1 serving of lean beef. Support your local Kansas farmers and ranchers. Eat beef. This message was brought to you by the K-State Animal Sciences Leadership Academy participants.
This is National Cooperative Month around the nation here in this month of October, and this is an occasion to celebrate and acknowledge the contributions of cooperatives, broadly speaking, but certainly for agriculture. We brought by from the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center here at K-State its director, Brian Briggeman. That's based in the Agricultural Economics Department here at the university. So it is National Co-op Month, Brian, and how do you view this occasion and why it's being observed now?
Well, co-ops are certainly an integral part of agriculture, but also for the United States as a whole. You know, co-ops, as we think about them in ag, are the elevators, across the plains, the White Castles, if you will, as we think about them. But there's a lot of other types of co-ops as well. Credit unions, the farm credit system. We have a number of food cooperatives, grocery cooperatives, telecommunications, rural electric. I mean, it just goes on and on. So it's a chance to, recognize that business model and what it has provided to the United States of America.
That business model has met with successes, obviously, all throughout the course of history, hasn't it?
Absolutely. When we look, here within Kansas, for example, some of our farmer cooperatives are over 100 years old. Initially, I believe the oldest known cooperative in Kansas is Delphus Co-op. Back in 1902 was some of the documentation, at least that I've been made aware, was when they started functioning as a co-op. So we look at co-ops and why they were started back then really was to alleviate a market failure. It's hard for us to imagine a time when we didn't have the wonderful infrastructure and all the transportation and everything that we enjoy today. But back then, it was tough for farmers to sell grain, to get, a place to sell it, but also to receive a competitive price for the grain they were producing or livestock that they were looking to sell. So that's when the idea of cooperatives kind of came over from England, was starting to, kind of catch hold here in the United States. And Delphus, for example, would be one of them that said, look, we can band together to do more together. The success of co-ops lies within their people. And many of those lessons that we learned back then still are true today.
We want to remind folks of the function and purpose of the center that you oversee, the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center here at K-State. You interact routinely with cooperatives and the organizations that band those together, right?
That is correct. So the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center was formed in 1984. So if you think back in time, the 80s were pretty turbulent for agriculture. They were also turbulent for farmer co-ops. So co-op leaders decided we need to have a center that can help us conduct research and educate us so that our co-ops can be prosperous well into the future. So the Kansas Cooperative Council met with folks from K-State, and they created the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center at that time with the purpose of determining, developing, and delivering research and education for the cooperative community.
Brian, we bring you by largely today to give an overview of the state of cooperatives, agricultural cooperatives in Kansas as we look at them present day and what you consider the pressing matters of interest to those cooperatives. As you said, they go with the ebb and flow of the general agricultural economy, and things could be better in that area right now.
You're exactly right, Eric. The farm economy is pretty tough right now. Margins are very tight. Commodity prices are depressed. The outlook isn't great. And when we think about the co-op model, right, that they were owned by their farmer customers, that structure, it's kind of closely tied. So you're exactly correct that generally as the farm economy goes, we kind of see the co-op community go as well. So farmer co-ops right now are facing tight margins. Things are not necessarily easy. They're not out there making profits like what we had seen in the past. But by and large, you look at balance sheets of the co-ops across Kansas, and they're fairly strong. So the financial situation is by no means dire. It's certainly strained, which creates challenges, but many of these co-ops are well equipped to manage them.
So how are co-ops, in a general sense, coping with these thin margins at the moment?
Well, I think it goes back to a lot of tried and true things that farmers adhere to. You look at maximizing operational efficiency, right? How we look at our cost structure. We look at various ways that we're out there providing service and value back to our membership. What can we do better? I think at the end of the day, many co-ops just cannot take their eye off that value creation, right? That we have to make sure that we are making our farmer owners better. That's why we were created in the first place, right? Going back to the 1900s. How can we continue to deliver value to them, even though it is tight margins that are out there today?
So value added, how is that manifested? What sorts of things specifically are cooperatives undertaking to lend greater value to their clientele, to their patrons?
Right. Well, probably the one thing that is very prevalent today, well, if it ever dries up and we can actually get out into the field and harvest,
right.
Is being able to match the speed to which producers can harvest a crop. It's amazing what technology has done, and the ability for a farmer to get the crop harvested, get it on a truck, and then go dump it at the elevator. Co-ops have really put a big emphasis on that speed and space that you hear a lot of folks talk about. And that's just to meet, the technological advancements, not only biotech, right, where we're raising bigger crops, but also capital improvements as well, as far as machinery and equipment and trucking. That's probably the biggest, value add that we can see, at least as we think about harvest today, is to be that place, but also to a knowledge center. With technology, there's been a lot of changes out there, a lot of new advancements. For example, just looking at precision agriculture. How can we actually use big data in a way to make us a better farmer? To me, that's a natural place for farmer co-ops to be working in. Goes right back to why they were formed in the first place, right? We want to make a farmer better. To collectively together, we can find a way to add value back to our farms. So you see many co-ops out there working within the precision agricultural space, making things better for their farmer owners.
The structure, if you will, of the cooperative scene keeps shifting, and that largely in the form of consolidation as well, perhaps to the point of adding value. And
right.
That's not slowing down, it doesn't seem.
No. You look at, there's a lot of reasons that we see consolidation within our farmer cooperatives here in Kansas. To maybe give a bit of context to this and something for your listeners to go to, if you go to our Capper Center website, that's www.accc.ksu.edu, you can click on a set of maps that we keep updated, and it's a starburst. So we drop a pin, a node, if you will, right on top of the co-op's headquarters. And then we have lines that go out to the different upright grain storage areas that they have. And, we kind of think of those maybe as branches, but where the upright grain storage is at. So one, you can kind of see what the landscape looks like. And the first thing that comes to my mind when I look at that map is we have a lot of coverage. Even though there's been consolidation, the Kansas farmer can be served by a cooperative. There's a strong presence. If we look at total grain storage within the state of Kansas, just over 40% of total grain storage is tied to farmer co-ops. The remaining 60%, 30% is tied to farmers on-farm storage, and the other 30% is with commercial storage that's non-co-op. So Cargill, ADM, multinational or privates as well. So there's a strong presence within Kansas. But, back to the consolidation piece. So you can go to the website, kind of get an idea of that. But the consolidation, we started this mapping project back in 2015. And when I started that, we had 86 total farmer cooperatives at that time. Today, we're at 71. So we've seen that landscape change, and we have seen consolidation. You see that some efficiencies can be gained. There's a way that if we work together that we can improve the value that we provide back to our farmers. So I think if there's a common theme in every single one of these mergers is how can we provide more back to the Kansas farmer than what we could do on our own.
Well, Brian, once again, back to the celebration that is National Cooperative Month. The purpose here is to acknowledge that this business model does work and does serve Kansas agriculture very well. That has not changed.
No, it hasn't. And, many of these co-ops that are out there, these towns are able to be vibrant communities. Yes, sure, smaller community, but they do have a local co-op that is a big employer within their surrounding area.
It's a cornerstone, really.
A cornerstone, right. They have many jobs at very high-functioning agribusinesses. So there is a tremendous added value beyond just the farmer, but more to the local community. I think that's the other key is that there's a local focus with many of our co-ops, right, that we want to find a way to invest locally.
You might check out the website that the center maintains. It has good information on our cooperative structures and operations in Kansas, accc.ksu.edu. Brian, thanks for sparing a few moments and talking with us right here.
Thanks a lot, Eric.
He is the director of the Arthur Capper Cooperative Center here at Kansas State University, Brian Briggeman. We'll be back with more in a moment on this Agriculture Today. Legal and financial concerns surround the day-to-day management of the agricultural industry. Producers, ag creditors, and USDA agencies rely on Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. If you've received an adverse decision from the USDA or have an ag credit concern, call today 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services, exploring options, generating solutions.
Welcome back to Agriculture Today. I'm Sarah Moyer here celebrating with the Kansas Foundation for Agriculture in the Classroom, their 35th year, and several events going on. One, of course, being the main highlight, their annual meeting coming up in November. But we'd also like to recognize today the 2018 Teacher of the Year, as it has now been announced. And here to help out with all of this exciting news, we have Communications Coordinator for the Foundation, Natalie Anderson. Good to have you on.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me.
Natalie, the first announcement that we'd like to make is the 2018 Teacher of the Year. Where was this announced and who is the recipient for this year?
Yes, we are really excited. The 2018 KFAC Teacher of the Year is Wanda Small. Wanda is a project-based learning teacher at Atchison County Community Schools Elementary School. She has K through 6th grade, and her application was just outstanding. This year was a record number for us. Actually, we had 11 teachers that applied, and that's the most we've had in quite some time. So she was pretty excited to know that she was named that out of all those applicants.
And for some background on how those people applied, is that something that fellow teachers apply with, or does that individual teacher fill out what's been going on in their classroom?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So for the application process, most often the teachers will fill out an application form and really just share what they're doing in their classrooms where they're using agriculture to teach science, math, social studies and language arts. Sometimes we will have some teachers that are nominated by, a county farm bureau coordinator or conservation district employee or something like that. But most often they'll fill out the application themselves. Mm-hmm.
It was also listed that she grew up on a farm and was a 4-H'er. So do you think that's a common theme for a lot of the recipients?
I would say a lot of the teachers that are really passionate about using ag in their classroom have some sort of ag background, and oftentimes it does stem from 4-H or FFA involvement or something like that. But hers was one that I can really remember where she talked a lot about 4-H.
One thing that was mentioned on a write-up about Wanda Small, which if folks want to read more about her, they can certainly go on to ksagclassroom.org. There's a teacher feature there on the right-hand side of the webpage. One thing that was noted there was her outdoor learning campus. Can you explain what that was like?
Yeah, so I have not seen it myself personally, but I know Wanda is pretty proud of that. And one thing that really shined through in her application is the support that she has of her school board and the community there. And so the outdoor learning center that they have was gifted to them. It was 7 acres that was gifted to them that they could use to really highlight agriculture. And so I know they have a lot of things, different things that they're doing out there. Growing some crops, doing a variety of things. But it's a place where the students can go outside and really get engaged and learn about agriculture hands-on and kind of get dirty and firsthand experience with agriculture. So it's pretty cool. As our recipient this year, Wanda will receive an all-expense-paid trip to the 2018 National Ag in the Classroom Conference. This year it's being held in Portland, Maine. And that award that trip sponsorship is generously sponsored by High Plains Journal and Ag AM in Kansas. So she'll get to travel up there and she'll be recognized there amongst all of the other state winners. And then she will also apply in January for the National Excellence in Teaching About Agriculture Award. And so we're pretty confident she has a strong application for that. So we'll be excited to see if she's chosen for that.
We'll wish her well on that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this was a special community to be supporting Wanda in her efforts there in her classroom. What are some other ways that communities across the state can support teachers in their area?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, just supporting them as far as if there are different professional development events that they want to attend where they can learn more about how they can use agriculture in their classroom. We have a variety of those types of things, and we're always looking for new teachers and schools to attend. And I know that's one of the biggest things is just, for the teachers that we've worked with, just knowing that they have the support to attend those, be that monetary or just encouragement to go is one way. And then, a lot of times they want to connect with farmers and ranchers in their community or ag businesses in their community, to have them come to their school and share about what they do in agriculture, just to be able to expose their students to that a little bit more. Or maybe they're looking for crops for grain that they can have in their classroom for an activity or something. Those are just a variety of ways that communities can really support the teachers that are trying to go all in with agriculture in their classroom. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And Wanda Small being one example of this, There was a statement that she had mentioned for the release about her award, and it said, "I don't teach agriculture to turn everyone into a farmer, but I feel it is very important to get them hooked into parts of agriculture they love at an early age. When kids grow up learning about agriculture and sustainability, it will impact the world to be a better place." And so I thought that was a good encapsulation of what Wanda would be like in the classroom and how she would try to encourage kids to be learning in their classrooms here in Kansas.
Yep.
One of those events that, as you mentioned, could be a way for teachers to be encouraged and gain some resources from would be the 35th anniversary and annual meeting for Kansas Foundation for Agriculture in the Classroom. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, so every year we hold an annual meeting, and this year our annual meeting will be on November 16th here in Manhattan, and it's really an opportunity for us to sort of a highlight reel for the last year for Ag in the Classroom. We kind of share what we've been up to this last year, the successes that we've had, the teachers that we've reached. And it's an opportunity for us to also recognize our donors. So a lot of our donors will be in attendance at that time. And as you said, this year we are celebrating our 35th anniversary. And so we're going to make that a little more special and just do kind of a fun dessert reception with it. And we're going to invite back previous teachers of the year to come as well. And I think that's one thing, too, to mention. It's always a highlight at annual meeting is that we invite the teacher of the year. So Wanda Small will come this year, and she will talk about what she's been doing in her classroom. And it really just brings an energy to the room that I think we all need kind of as we wrap up the year and look towards 2018. It's just nice to hear what they're doing and how donor dollars are impacting teachers and youth across the state. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Terrific. And once again, the annual meeting will be held in Manhattan, November 16th. That is a Thursday in November. And if people are interested in attending, how do they go about that registration?
Yep, you can just reach out to us. There will be more information on our website, ksagclassroom.org. You can feel free to give us a call or an email. And all that's on our website.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. A third opportunity to be involved or show your support is to purchase an agri-tag, that being a specialty license plate. And what else should people know about this agri-tag campaign and opportunity to get involved?
Yeah, it's an easy way to get involved with Ag in the Classroom. We are the only agriculture specialty tag or license plate in the state of Kansas. And with agriculture being our number one industry in the state, we think it's a really great way to showcase agriculture by, getting a license plate and putting that on your car or your truck or whatever that might be. It's a $35 annual donation, and that $35 comes right back to KFAC every year. And so it's just a small amount, an easy way to kind of show your pride for Kansas agriculture and support Ag in the Classroom at the same time. If people are interested in getting an agri-tag, you can get one of those at your county treasurer's office, and they have them there. You can look at them, and then you can get your agri-tag right there, and pretty easy.
Excellent. And so if they do have additional questions about this, they could, of course, go to your website, find some contact information, and while they're there, see what else is going on with the foundation and activities around the state. Will there be some information past the annual meeting to kind of give a report on what happens if people miss out on that?
Yeah, so we are working on our annual report right now, and we will have that ready for our annual meeting, and that will be on our social media sites and our website as well after the annual meeting, and you can kind of get a highlight of everything that's happened this year and at annual meeting.
Those social media handles, or where to find Kansas Ag in the Classroom online, what would those be?
Yep, we are on Facebook, Kansas Foundation for Agriculture in the Classroom, and Twitter, KS_AgClass. And we also have a presence on Pinterest if you're a Pinterest user at all. And we know there's a lot of teachers out there that like to use that. So,
Excellent. Well, those are resources available, and definitely stay connected to what's going on here as educators are out influencing children in the communities across Kansas. It's good to have you on, Natalie.
Thanks again, Sarah.
That, once again, was Communications Coordinator for Kansas Foundation for Agriculture in the Classroom, Natalie Anderson, sharing about the 2018 Teacher of the Year, Wanda Small, and she will be one of the speakers at the annual meeting that's upcoming in November 16th, again, the date for that, as they celebrate their 35th anniversary. Lastly, we were mentioning that the agri-tags that support the foundation are available at county treasury offices, and that is one way among many to support Kansas Foundation for Ag in the Classroom. For Agriculture Today, I'm Sarah Moyer.
All right, Sarah, thank you. We'll stand aside for a few moments. When we return after the break, today's agricultural news headlines are coming your way. And awaiting as well is Greg Akagi with this week's edition of the Kansas Soybean Update. And again, further ahead, we'll talk fall lawn management with K-State's Jared Hoyle during our horticulture segment. All of that is still to come here on the K-State Radio Network. Please keep it right here.
Did you know every Kansas farmer feeds 128 plus people?
Kansas farmers are hard workers, dependable, authentic, and sensitive.
Not only do farmers put food on your table, but they put clothes on your back and fuel in your car.
For more information about Kansas farmers, visit K-State Research and Extension online or stop by your local Extension office. This message has been brought to you by the K-State Animal Sciences Leadership Academy participants.
Coming to you from the campus of Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today, and welcome back. Eric Atkinson here. Next up, today's agricultural news headlines in brief, these courtesy in part of DTN. USDA Secretary Sonny Perdue says that the U.S. is going on the offensive when it comes to unjustified agricultural trade barriers by other nations, stating that all options are on the table. Here's more from the USDA's Gary Crawford.
When it comes to dealing with nations who impose unfair, unscientific barriers to U.S. agricultural products,
all options are on the table.
Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue, he's beginning a 6-day trip to Europe, including 2 days in Italy at the meeting of ag ministers of the G7 nations, France, Canada, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the UK, during which he will have one-on-one talks with each of his counterparts from those nations. Before the trip, Perdue told a U.S. trade meeting,
"We need to make other countries understand that we're not going to stand for any longer unjustified trade barriers that cannot be supported by sound science reasoning.
And that the U.S. will be stepping up litigation against those barriers if needs be.
It's always better to solve differences, I believe, through negotiation and using litigation as a last resort. But litigation has to be a credible threat, and we do need to dramatically increase our pressure on trading partners who are acting unfairly with unfair restrictions."
And he said the U.S. will be upping the pressure with regard to current trade deals and negotiations on new ones. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
On a related note, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is deploying resources now to warn of a threat to the North American Free Trade Agreement, as the several proposals from the Trump administration in the talks are, as they call it, a poison pill for the deal. Quoting here the Chamber head Tom Donahue, "We've reached a critical moment, and the Chamber had no choice but to ring the alarm bells." He said tightening U.S. rules of origin on autos is among the counterproductive U.S. proposals that would send business overseas. Plus, the talked-about sunset provision for NAFTA is another potential component that will not foster a pro-investment environment in the U.S., according to Donahue. This group has deployed a host of NAFTA backers to Congress to make their case for keeping NAFTA as the fourth round of talks gets underway. The National Academy of Sciences wants the USDA's lead statistical agency to develop new systems for gathering information for crop reports and other surveys. In a report released yesterday, the National Academy highlighted that the National Agricultural Statistics Service could make several changes over time to improve the accuracy of its reports, as well as develop guidelines that make the data collection more transparent and reproducible. NASS entered into an agreement with the National Academy of Sciences 3 years ago, specifically to have the Academy study how NASS does county-level crop estimates as well as cash rent estimates. Virtually all statistical agencies are seeing declines in survey response rates, and NASS no exception, according to the Academy study. As a result, it says the number of counties for which NASS has been able to publish estimates for crop acreage, yield, and cash rents has been declining over time. This Academy panel made its recommendations in terms of a vision for NASS by the year 2025. That vision would focus on changing the Agricultural Statistics Board to models that incorporate multiple data sources. The Ag Statistics Board should evolve into reviewing model-based predictions, macro-editing, and ensuring the models are continually reviewed, assessed, and studied, according to these recommendations. Now, the chief mathematical statistician and director of research and development at NASS, Linda Young, said the study was a confirmation of the direction NASS has been moving in its own research and development. Over the last decade, the service has developed more county-level data for farm programs, she says, by introducing more large-scale surveys to provide the information. The only problem, as the National Academy noted, is that farmers have raised questions with program agencies about the use of estimates derived from these surveys because they feel that the county average does not represent their own farm experience. The Farm Service Agency demonstrated to the Academy panel how relatively small variations in county yield estimates can result in relatively large changes in the ARC County program payments and possibly no payments being triggered at all. Now, the Academy made several recommendations for ways that NASS could obtain better county-level data, such as using geospatial field data and precision ag measurements in databases to help complete the referenced farm-level database. The Academy also says that NASS should collaborate with the Risk Management Agency to obtain acreage and production data and conduct comparisons with NASS data for the same entity. You're tuned to Agriculture Today. Now, this week's Kansas soybean update. Here's Greg Akagi.
Sean Schmidt, program coordinator for Central Kansas Clean Cities, joins us. And Sean, if you're a Kansas resident or operate a business or agency in the state and you use biodiesel, you're eligible to receive a rebate.
That's correct.
And why is that, specifically looking at biodiesel? Why is this rebate in place?
We'd like to increase usage for biodiesel, particularly in the state of Kansas, the fuel that's cleaner than diesel, and it helps the Kansas economy quite a bit.
So if you're an individual, what are the specifics that you need to be able to be eligible for that rebate?
So for an individual, the rebate is $1 off per gallon for blends of 5% and above that are 5% biodiesel. That rebate is up to $200 per year for the entire program.
And do they need to fill out a form, do something online to be able to do that?
They don't need to fill out a form if they want to take advantage of the rebate program. What they'll do is either send me or the Kansas Soybean Commission a receipt showing that they filled up with a blend above 5% biodiesel, and we'll reimburse them for that purchase.
So now, if you're a fleet representing a business or an agency, what are some of the things you need to do to qualify for that rebate?
So it's similar to the individual. It's $1 rebate per gallon for up to 2,000 gallons of any biodiesel blend above 10% for fleet.
Do they need to certify the purchase kind of similar to what the individual would need to do?
Yes, very similar. Send a proof of purchase to the Kansas Soybean Commission, and we'll reimburse them for it.
Why is it important to have relationships like this between Clean Cities Coalition, the Metropolitan Energy Center, and the Kansas Soybean Commission?
The Clean Cities program, we try to be a non-biased entity that promotes all alternative fuels within transportation. And a big one of that is biodiesel. So a good relationship with the Clean Cities program and an entity like the Kansas Soybean Commission, we're promoting a domestic fuel, and even more specifically with the Soybean Commission, we're promoting a fuel that is used and a lot of the time produced in Kansas.
And they can go to the Metropolitan Energy Center's website to get more information?
Yes, it's metroenergy.org.
All right, sounds good. Sean, we appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
That is Sean Schmidt, Program Coordinator for Central Kansas Clean Cities, on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission.
Thanks, Greg. And you're listening to Agriculture Today. For 25 years, K-State Research and Extension's Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services has been providing a no-cost, confidential place to call in and visit with an agricultural lawyer. Our experts are available to help you producers handle legal and financial issues. Explore your options and generate solutions. Call us at 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. We're back now on this Agriculture Today, and coming your way on this week's K-State Horticulture segment. Some early to mid-fall lawn management considerations, especially for those of you who have seeded or overseeded a cool season lawn here in recent weeks, and thoughts for those established lawns as well, as we talk once again with Research and Extension turfgrass specialist at K-State, Jared Hoyle. Jared, for those who have been planning on seeding a cool season lawn this fall, they're running out of time, you say.
Yes, that's right. We typically think about mid-October is the last seeding date for the year. As everybody knows, the seasons can change. It can warm back up. It can cool down really fast. But mid-October, we kind of say, is the last date for getting new turf established. We want to make sure the turf gets in, the seeds grow, they're healthy before they go into wintertime. Because the weaker they are in the wintertime, the least likely for it to be successful come the next year.
They are a cool season plant, so they need a time to harden off, do they not, heading into the winter?
That's right. And what they'll do is they'll grow good roots, and then that way it's good and healthy and strong if it gets really, really, really cold during the wintertime. Warm season grass, we're not talking about. We would want to do that in the springtime. But cool season grass, earlier the better. So if you're thinking about doing it, just remember that if you do it, there is a risk involved with the later you wait, the least likely it's not going to be as successful.
So this weekend may be the deadline, if you will.
Exactly right.
So get after that if you haven't planted your cool season lawn yet this fall. For either the new turf or established turf, fertilization of the cool season grass is well advised here.
That's right. So fall is the best time for cool season grasses when it comes to fertilizing. You're going to do maximum of 3 pounds of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. You can do that in a whole lot of different ways. You can go a slow release, and you can put all 3 pounds down, and as long as it releases over the entire time, you can spoon feed it, as I call it, with a quick release, where you would put maybe a pound down last month, now a pound in October, and a pound in November. So we're right in the middle of that. So if you've already done one fertilization and it's growing pretty good, maybe it's starting to slow off and it's not growing as much as it did, maybe it's time for that second application. And then their last application would be November time frame. That November time frame is a really, really important one, I think of it.
Why so?
The grass brings in the nutrients and it stores it and it knows it's going to sleep, and then it just holds on to that. And then it's whenever it wakes up in the springtime, it's already got the nutrients and the energy it needs.
So an early boost for the grass.
An early boost. It's not waiting on us in the springtime to put fertilizer down for it to grow. And it holds on to that green color in the winter. With that late October, November fertilization, your turf will just be a lot greener through the wintertime.
Mm-hmm. Either way is fine, though. A slow release, a quick release, whatever one's preference is, right?
Yes, that's correct. If you did earlier in the year, September, October, November is our time frame for fertilizing. If you did a slow release earlier, then you don't need to put any more. On the bag, it'll say how many days it'll release. Most of the time, it's a 90-day or a 120 release. Once you get into October, November, we need to think about making sure that we don't put a slow release fertilizer out that's going to start releasing through December or January when the plant's not growing and taking up. So just make sure you look at that on the label. Right now, you can still get away with a 90-day release, but when you get into the next fertilizing the next month, you want to make sure it's a quick-release fertilizer. That way, you're not wasting money, so to say.
The goal is to have nitrogen available to that plant in November.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yep.
Weed control, great time to get after several broadleaf weeds, dandelions, and the like. And we've a window to deal with those as well, do we not?
Yes. Right now, the question I get most of the time is, do I put it out before or do I do it after? Well, if you put it out before and you got rid of the weeds, dandelions, all of your other broadleaf weeds, and then you went and seeded, that's great. But if you didn't, you still have time to do it. If you've seeded, make sure you wait for a couple mowings on the label of whatever herbicide that you're putting out. It will say wait 3 or 4 mowings prior to applying this product. But you still do have time. Wait for one of the days that it might be a little bit warmer, that you can apply this product, and then that product will be taken in by the plant and get rid of it. But just make sure that you are in the right window after seeding with that product.
And a weed and feed product can suit the need here?
Yes. I mean, you're exactly right. If we're trying to fertilize our lawn at the same time, and it's time for a fertilizer application, we can do a weed and feed just as long as it is a certain amount of time after the seeding period. So, yes, it would be a good time for that.
Yeah. One thing, though, that you wanted to spend a bit of time on, Jared, because folks oftentimes think that they need to completely clear their lawn of those leaves as they fall here in the autumn season. You would recommend, to the contrary, those can be a useful source of nutrient and organic matter for the lawn by mulching them.
That's right. There was a study actually done in Arkansas a long time ago, and what they did was they piled up a bunch of different amounts of leaves and they mulched them up. And come springtime, they found out it didn't matter how many leaves were on there as long as you mulched it up. The turf was okay. So instead of doing the back-breaking work of raking it up and putting in piles and putting in bags, it may just be easier just to invest in a mulching blade for your lawnmower and just mulch over it. You know, the deeper it gets, the more leaves that are out there, the harder it's going to be to mulch. So a more frequent regime when it comes to mulching leaves is easier than it is when it comes to, say, maybe waiting every 2 weeks.
So irrespective of where your grass is in its growth, go ahead and mulch those leaves when it's handy, basically, right?
That's exactly right. And, you know, and you might have people coming over, you might have a get-together or something, and you don't want the leaves out there. You can collect them. Go ahead and put them on your garden area. Mm-hmm. And you can till them into the garden area. I did that last week when I was at home. It's a great source of nutrients and stuff, and it's a lot less wasteful than putting them in a landfill.
But by all means, don't waste that organic material. It's useful for a number of purposes, including lawn maintenance. Appreciate your time, as always. We'll talk again soon. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Some timely information on fall lawn establishment and management. That's Jared Hoyle. He's a turfgrass specialist with K-State Research and Extension, our guest on this week's K-State Horticulture segment. And with that, today's edition comes to a close. As always, thanks for being along with us. Please rejoin us here tomorrow, won't you? Until then, and for Sarah Moyer, Eric Atkinson here, this has been Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.